Welcome to the No Risk Business Performance Podcast, where we discuss all things very small business, from the challenges to solutions to failures and victories. I'm your host, Judah Boulay, and I'm ready to roll, so let's do this. Today I have a very special guest. We have Hank Capasso from Hank's Protein Plus Peanut Butter. I've known Hank, we're dating both of ourselves. I think I first met Hank in 2000, back when Gold's Gym in North Providence opened, even maybe before that at Bally's in North Providence. So it's been a long time knowing each other, but we've had a professional relationship for the past 5 years. And I'm going to let Hank introduce himself. So for Hank, welcome to the show. And if you can take a moment, introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, Judah. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having me on. And I am Hank Capasso, the originator, creator, however you would like to put it, the CEO of Hank's Protein Plus. We make high protein, natural nut butter spreads, almond butters and peanut butters and vegan peanut butters as well. We've been in business for about 6 years, but I've actually been making the product for about 10 or 11 years. The old in the basement of the house for the first few years, and then moving into a factory setting, which we're in now. And we're local. We're in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and we're online. The website hanksproteinplus.com. On Instagram and Facebook, Hank's PBS. So it's been a learning experience over the past 5 or 6 years. We've had our ups and downs, and like I tell a few people, I've hit the mat enough times now that I think I've had enough with that. So I'm going to try to stay on our feet now for the next few.
So Hank, so before the peanut butter, what were you doing?
Mainly, I had a personal trouble. I owned a gym for about 24 years in Providence, Branch Avenue, World Gym on Branch Avenue, with a partner. And then I left there and opened up my own personal training facility at the Gold's Gym in North Providence. Working within, I had my own spot plus, the rest of the gym. And I did a lot of nutritional programs for people. I dieted a lot of athletes, competitive bodybuilders, figure, bikini, you name it. It was a very busy 10 or 12 year period there up until about 2010, 2011, around there. And then started to branch off into what I do now. I went to another gym after that and opened up in there because the Gold's Gym had closed. And the gym is right next door to my factory. So I was training people there and had the business going here. So I was going back and forth constantly.
So where did you get the idea for the nut butter spreads?
Well, I have to give credit where credit is due. And, the brains behind the operation is my wife. I started actually with a different type of a snack. It was a mixed bag of peanuts and different things, dried fruit and stuff like that. And I actually mixed a small amount of the protein powder, flavored protein powder, and it was already sweetened, pre-sweetened stuff, into that, and vacuum sealed the bags. And I used to put 3 of those little snack packs into a larger bag. And then that was kind of like running its course. And that was at the time where one of the major protein peanut butter companies, they went out of business. It was the only one at the time. And we kind of saw the opening there. So my wife had said, why don't you try making, some kind of a peanut butter? So I bought a grinder. I had a spot in the back of my gym, a vacant spot on the back of my gym on Branch Avenue, and started to play around with the idea. And then, I said, what am I paying rent for when I can, change a little bit of the electricity at my house? I went down, we cleaned out an area there, and I was making it there mainly for my office in Gold's Gym and at the other gym. And I was finding out after doing some numbers that I was selling like 80, 90 pounds a month to the people who I was training. And then I was starting to get people coming in off the street, but I only had it like in a deli container, and I made my own computerized label. And but I was selling, I didn't even really realize how much I was selling till a buddy of mine who was into finance, he said, you should probably track this and just see how many you're doing. And over like a 4-month period, I sold, I don't know, about 350, 360 jars, containers. So then
So,
it was just a little bit of a progression after that. And yep, and that was it. And I moved into, starting to take it more seriously as a business.
cool. So what was the impetus for like the snack though? What did you see the need for? Like like you created the snack packs of nuts and whey. But
Yeah.
what
What I
was the
did,
purpose for
yeah,
that?
what I did that for, okay, that was mainly for the nutritional programs that I was making for people. I was getting in a lot of type 1 and type 2 diabetics that were coming to me. I had gone back to school when I was like, I don't know, 47 or 48, and got my bachelor's in nutrition, just to give my practice that I was already doing of making programs, nutritional programs for people, to kind of validate it with the education behind it. So the need for diabetics is the continuous small, you know, meals throughout the course of the day, 2 or 3 main meals, and but it was that in between part that everybody was having a hard time with, including me, creating something for them that they would actually, eat in between breakfast and lunch, and possibly after between lunch and dinner. Um, so I kind of like just tried a few things and came upon, the mixed nut fruit product first. And then I presented it to some of the stores who I kind of had already a connection with, and they took it in, and I was, beginning to sell it, that way, probably in about maybe 10 or 15 stores, locally.
Okay.
So then once I stopped that and brought the peanut butter in, there were no other peanut butters around at the time. So that's when we transitioned into that, and that got more popular than the nut snacks ever were, because everybody loves peanut butter, it seems. So, or almond butter, and that was an easier transition.
That's no. So you have a fantastic
But it took
product.
a lot.
You have a fantastic product. I
Thank
was
you.
hooked, I think, from the first time I tried it. It's probably it's healthy crack. Although it can pack a wall up if you don't if you don't portion size. So it's delicious. So the formulation, right? So it's not like regular peanut butter, right? It's super creamy.
Mhm.
Is that just from like
Right.
how did you come up with the formulation for it, or is that like by adding the whey to the peanut butter, or is that just trial and error? Like how did you like? So what was the process to come up with your finished product? Like how many pounds of peanuts did you actually have to go through to get to where you are now?
Well, actually, right. The thing with that, it wasn't really that difficult because I kind of worked it backwards into what I wanted for numbers, for protein, carbs, fats, and what would the recipe have to entail of how much protein uh, um, do I have to get into the product to get like 10 or 12 grams per serving. So I kind of worked it backwards from the numbers backwards, instead of making the product and then trying to figure out, okay, now how do I get to these numbers? You know, um, so doing it that way was a lot, I don't want to say easier because it was still a lot of work, but it was a simpler task to arrive at the formula than if I did it any other way. I knew that I wanted to get that 10 to 12 grams of protein, and the way that the nuts come, where how I get them is in 30-pound cases. So everything had to be based on 30 pounds. Like, what do I need to get into that 30 pounds of nut product to come out with the numbers that we eventually came out with? So, and the numbers have changed over the years, but really not that much. And then in this past November, I did a whole rebranding with, the label, the logo, and everything, and then got rid of all of the artificial ingredients. And I thought that was going to be a little bit more difficult than it actually was, but it wasn't. It was almost an even trade-off, ingredient for ingredient or amount for amount. You know, um, the thing is with the sweetener was tricky, but the monk fruit sweetener that we use now, as opposed to the stevia and maltodextrin, um, it's a lot less. Monk fruit is like really, I mean, the pure monk fruit that we use, it's not mixed with xylitol or erythritol or anything like that. Um, it's like a half an ounce covers 30 pounds or 35 pounds of product, where 4 or 5, I think 5 ounces of the other sweetener is what we needed to use before. So it's actually become even a little bit more cost effective going the natural, 100% natural route that we are where we are now. You
That's
know,
awesome. So you just mentioned, or you rebranded in November. So what was the purpose for the rebrand, and how challenging was the rebrand for you? And how has the rebrand been perceived by your customer base?
it's yeah, it's been really well received. It was a little bit confusing as to what was actually in the jar unless you knew what we were making before by looking at the label. It was a little bit too busy. And a lot of times, like we do shows and events and stuff, and a lot of people, they would open it and look at it inside and still not know really what it was, unless I introduced it as a peanut butter or an almond butter. Um, and then after that, giving them a taste of it and all that stuff. So uh, this way, it's just a clean. I mean, everything now. I wanted to go with a cleaner product, so I wanted to make the label have a cleaner look, and it does. But what happened was I started to work with. Have you ever heard of Fiverr?
Yep.
The company Fiverr.
Yep.
Okay. So what I did was I was working with a guy, a website designer from the Middle East, like this Zoom meetings or emails and all of that, everything. And we were developing the website for a cleaner looking website. And he kind of like happened upon, I gave him a description of something that I wanted, and it was by chance it actually happened. Part of the logo came out in his thought process, the way he put it onto the website, and I liked it. And then from that point, I expanded that idea into what the logo looks like now. Uh, but it was almost by chance that it took on the look that it has now, and I really think it's a good representation of the product, a cleaner look, cleaner product, and a cleaner taste. I mean, the monk fruit really does make everything taste like a natural sweetness to the product. You know,
Gotcha. No, it's still delicious. I haven't noticed the drop off. I actually think it tastes amazing. So you have multiple flavors. So where did you get the
right?
ideas for the flavors? Is that those flavors that you just thought would hit, or did somebody request the flavor, or how do you decide? What's your thought process in deciding like when you're going to introduce a new flavor? Because I think you have what,
Well,
10 flavors
I get a
now?
bunch of. No, we have 18
18.
actually.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So the what I do is I get a bunch of like index cards, and I throw them up against the wall, and whatever sticks, that's the flavor I use. No, I'm only kidding. So I originally started with the and actually it wasn't chocolate chip, it was a chocolate peanut butter. This is my first one, the very very first one. And then I moved into what's considered the plain one now, and then I had one that was like a honey maple,
Hmm.
and it just seemed like the chocolate was outselling like everything, and then the honey maple was kind of like second. So um, once I was able to figure things out, I turned the chocolate into the chocolate chip. The honey maple actually morphed into the white chocolate pretzel that I have now, and the other one, the plain one, is the plain one that I have now. So I figured I had like something that was really sweet, like the chocolate one, something in between, which was the honey maple, and then something on the lower end of the sweetness scale, so to speak, with the plain one. So then I started to kind of like add to each spot on the flavor spectrum. You know, I think I brought um, the almond butter's in. The original almond butter was my first almond butter, which is the almond version of the plain. It's got like a vanilla. I use vanilla flavoring
Mhm.
um, with the almond butter. Same thing as my plain. My plain is a little bit more of a vanilla flavoring than added into the recipe. But I was trying to add on to, like, if you divided the flavor scale into three sections, I was just trying to add on to like one on each spot on that flavor scale, you know. Um, but when you come to find out, a lot of people really like things that are sweeter than
Right.
not. So the confetti kind of, was one of the original 8 or 10, one of the original 8. Um, and then then I came out with the vegan part of it, the non-dairy. And again, with that one, I went with the similar to when I first started. I went with the chocolate chip, the butterscotch, which is that in between, and then the vegan natural, which is my plain version. Then we added the pecan pie, you know. So it was just kind of like picking like three areas on a spectrum and trying to add to each a sweeter, a mid sweetness, and then something just was not as sweet as the other two.
Right.
So kind of that way.
I think I've tried all of them. I have my own personal favorites,
Have
but
you tried the buffernutter?
so I was just going to ask
Did you
about
try the
the
new one, the
Buffernutter.
buffernutter?
That is
Okay.
crazy.
Yeah,
So, where did the idea for
that's
the
the crack.
Buffernutter come from? What is so? It's because basically it's peanut butter and fluff.
I don't know if there's something wrong. Right,
So
right. And it
basically, it's
only
peanut
comes in
butter
the
and
six
fluff.
ounce size right now, but it will be in. What's that? Say that again.
No, I'm sorry. I think we're on a lag. I said no. It's where did the idea for that come from? Because it's basically peanut butter and fluff in a can.
Right.
Or,
It's yeah, in a can, a container. Yeah, and the 1 pound size will be coming out at the end of the month as soon as my labels are finished. Um, so it's 1 ounce of the marshmallow cream and 5 ounces of the plain protein peanut butter. Um, but I don't know, things just I don't know. It's gonna make me like sound odd, but the creative side of anything was always like easier for me than, let's say, like the technical or the business side of things. So just things just I don't know, it just came to me one day. So I like to try a mixture of the marshmallow fluff and the peanut butter, just like the old fluff and butter sandwiches to those people who are like, 45 and older, how we remember them. So that was that was an easy get because I knew that the peanut butter flavor to go with that had to be more on the neutral side. So with the plain peanut butter, it really was, something that it just took off. I mean, we've sold a ton of the 6 ounce size, in that, and a lot of people who didn't know we had it, if I gave them one or two with their order, then very next order they would order it, or they would just put in an order just for that one, you know.
right.
So I think the 1 pounder is going to do very well in that as soon as it's out. So
No, it's fantastic. So when is the
I don't know what's next.
I was gonna say when is the Hank's peanut butter and jelly coming out?
Well, here's the thing: the jelly has to stay in a cold atmosphere because I already tried that,
Oh, really?
and on the shelf, yeah, the jelly breaks down and doesn't stay very long unless with the sealing system that I have now, it may stay. I think it may be able to last the entirety of the shelf life, which should be about a year. So that is actually the next something that I was going to try and see maybe over a few months after sealing it the way that we seal the product now, if it'll actually stay, you know. So,
Put me on the
but
list for
then I get
taste
people who
testing.
love almond butter saying, "What are you going to do an almond butter?" What would you say? For what?
Said no when
What would you say?
when you need taste testers for that to see if it's still good after 3 months, four
I'll let you
months.
have it. Yeah.
Put me on the list.
Yeah. I'll put you
Uh,
on the list. Yeah. My wife's the official taste tester, but you'll be in tandem with her. I'll have you try it when she tries it.
so Hank, you've grown the brand
So, but
tremendously.
No, what I was going to say is, you asked about the peanut butter and jelly kind of thing. I get people who love almond butter and don't eat that much peanut butter say, when are you going to try this type of almond butter? And then the vegan people say, when are you going to try a vegan almond butter? And there's a lot of things that I'd like to, but what I think I'm going to plan on doing from now on is do short runs of different things and not keep them on the market for. But see, once I put something out there, I figure even if have one person that likes it, it's worth it for me to keep it out there. They always say you can't, if you're satisfying 51% of the people, you're doing okay. I look at it as like I need to satisfy like 99% of them. That's my, that's my philosophy. So if somebody keeps buying it, I keep making it. So
Right.
we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
You've grown the brand tremendously, right? From where you started. What was like what was the process to do that? Was it like luck? Was it just grinding? Was it referrals? How did you get your brand out there and in so many stores? Because it's not just in Rhode Island you're all over the country.
Right. And that was when I reached the point when I was really doing my best without a distribution network. Um, that's when I thought it was time to get involved with distribution because I was already doing a lot of stores on my own, and you know, with three or four, like four employees at the time, I I didn't, because I'm involved with between production and everything else. There wasn't a whole lot of time unless it was coming in by referrals or word of mouth, different stores saying I heard this, this, and this. Now I figured for me to grow it, I was going to have to like get out there somehow, some way. So that's when I took on the distribution part of it. Actually, they approached me about it, and but then I made a common mistake, which if I could take it back, I would. Uh, Other distributors were approaching me about it too, and I was thinking, the more, the better. And with distribution, it's not really the best idea because now you're closing yourself off to the stores that you may have been able to sell direct to because now distribution is soaking them all up, you know? And and that's the reason why now um, they reached the point where it wasn't worth it for me with the amount of distribution that I had involved with my company. Um, and with COVID, kind of added another level to that because now distributors weren't given the money that they were getting before to invest in a product like mine and then get it out there. So now they were limited in the amount of money that they could actually spend on all their different supplements that they carry. So at that point, which was recently, like only a couple of weeks ago, I did a lot of soul searching and research and praying about trying to make the right move with this. And I kept getting led right back to, I think it's time to start to cut off the lines of distribution and get back to doing it the way you did before because it just got to be too much, like I said, for the amount of the return that I was getting on it, because you're selling to distribution on a discount from the wholesale, not the retail, but the wholesale. So you're working a lot, you're producing a lot, and the return on it really isn't that great when you take out all the fees and discounts and all this other stuff. So um, we're going to go back. I'm going back to the direct route because even now with the distributors got us into a lot of stores. I was working with three distributors or four. So I'm figuring now if the stores can't get it through distribution, if they really liked it, they're going to have to get a hold of me to sell it direct to them if they still want the product, you know. So I'm sort of banking on that. And I'll tell you what, I started working with a social media company about 3 months ago, and they've been tremendous for us. You know, I just couldn't do everything plus that myself. So, they've gotten the word out about us too, that we're getting more of a response from stores that I'd never heard of before, and we're sending out things, continuously,
That's
and
awesome.
waiting to see what the return is going to be on that. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic.
So that's the new stage that we're in now.
Right. Well, you mentioned that you made mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. That's how you learn. That's the best way to learn in business, is to make a
Mm.
mistake, because then like, you'll never make that mistake. And one of the things is that, like, if another you now work, you're a wise little sage for a new business potentially. If they say, hey, Hank, should I use a distributor or should I not? What's your thoughts on it? You've been there. Now you
Right.
can say, hey, I've been there, and tread carefully or tread wisely. So that's it's mistakes are, I think, sometimes in a, eh, go are great, in the learning process. So one more question, and I'm going to hit you. I know you're
Well, they
busy,
present
so I'm going
they
to hit you.
present opportunity as well.
Right, right. Um,
When you
so
make a mistake, that presents an opportunity. So
right, definitely, definitely. And even with COVID, like, there was a lot of negatives from COVID, but like, it helped a lot. It presented a lot of new opportunities for a lot of businesses. So um, competition,
right.
right? I don't, I only know of Hank's, protein rich peanut butter. I don't even know if you have competitors, but you don't have to name them if you do. But like, how do you deal with competition? Do you give any credence to it, or you just focus on your own thing? Do you see what they're doing and try to, like, mimic, or what's your opinion when looking at competitors when you're dealing with a retail product?
Yeah, I always stuck to my own thing, but was always aware of what was going on around me, and never to the level of copying, because we were the ones that actually got copied, you know. Uh, on a us being like the small potatoes, you know, the bigger company is the one that wound up copying us, which is, I guess, it's a, I guess it's a compliment in a way, but um, we there's always a misnomer out there that we weren't the original ones, that our competition, local competition, were the originators of this whole thing. And you know but I don't get it out there and say, so and so was saying that they're the original, but we were the. I don't get into any of that. I just let things take their course. I always figure there's enough room in this market, because there's some pretty lousy nut butters out there, protein flavored, flavored protein nut butters that are like hard like a rock. They have no shelf life whatsoever. They're just awful, and I can't believe people spend their money on it. So I just figure eventually they're gonna have to try us, and when they do, I'd say, 90. I'm confident that 95% of the time they'll side with us than they will anybody else. And I'm going to be interested to see how that works out again, now that we're not involved with distributors. That people, if they want us, they're going to have to come to us. And uh, now that we're out there like naked with no clothes on anymore, it's going to be interesting to see, what the response is going to be now, because we don't have people on the ground, like sales reps repping for us. Now it's okay. We know about the product. Now we got to get in touch with him if we want it. So we'll see where that goes. So
Gotcha. So when I owned my gym, I carried your product. My members loved it. We went through, for a small gym. Um, we went through, I feel, a lot of it. Um, I want to say close to 50 containers a month. Maybe that's a little aggressive. At least
yeah,
25 to 30.
easily. No, that's
Um,
about right.
was it? Yeah. So, because I felt like every other month or every
Yeah.
6 weeks, I was hitting you up to place a new order because we were running low on some flavors. But what's
Right.
the advantage of selling your product if you're a small business like a gym?
like a gym. Well, it's first of all, you're giving your customers another way of getting, like, if you're, a protein person and are really really conscious of your protein intake, you're giving them a different way other than like bars and shakes and things like that. And you know, people from when they were kids are familiar with that staple food of peanut butter. So I think if you had three choices up there for your customer, if you're a small gym or even a bigger gym, I think when they see the peanut butter, they're going to gravitate towards that one first because of the familiarity with what that product actually is. Because with a bar, I mean, it's wrapped up and all this stuff. You don't know what you're going to get. And I was never a bar person, so I always think you're giving them, something, but you also have to have some information there in that store so that people can pick up something and look and see what your product is all about, what the company is all about. So we have, you know, countertop POS material that we send out to all of our stores so that they can, if they're, not familiar with who we are, they can see it. And we send out samples with all our orders as well. If we a store, we have to fulfill an order for a store, we'll always also send them some samples with the spoons and everything to put out for their customers to give it, to give it a try, you know. But I think it's just another way of getting a food in there that's, you know, performance based because of the nature of the product and being that it has but I have people who give it to their kids. I mean, we have a bunch of pictures on Instagram of, their little kids eating it because it's kid safe.
Yep.
It's actually dog safe because we don't use sugar alcohols, so you can give it to your adopted dog. So
I
so
give it to my
we try
kids
to
too.
cover everything.
I give it to my kids. My kids love
Good. That's good.
the buffernutter. My kid, I,
Yeah.
I said my
There you
kids
go.
love the buffernutter. So like it was, my kids love
Yeah.
it.
Excellent.
And from a retail standpoint, like
Good.
you do make money from buying wholesale and selling at retail. So that's another advantage for small gyms. I was a big fan of trying to diversify income streams when I owned the gym. Like you had your
Hmm.
memberships and then you had your
Yep.
personal training. And I wanted to have like some income coming in from retail, just so you have another source
Right.
of income. Um, all right, so I'm gonna have a
Yep.
couple more questions just to finish things up. I know you're busy. So these are the questions I ask every guest. All right. First off, do you have a favorite quote, like some type of motivational quote or any quote or something that you always refer back to, like when you're ready to like bang your head into the wall or to pick yourself off the mat? You know, um, do you have one?
Yeah. Well, it's my own thing, and I always say to myself, like whenever I'm in a situation, like what's again working backwards. I always say, okay, from this, what's the worst case scenario? Like, what's the worst that can possibly happen from this? And then work from that point backwards to try to get out of what that situation might hold as fast as possible with as much thought as possible, and try to break everything down into phases, into steps. All right, step one is going to be, I got to organize this part of it. Step two is now I have to like implement this part of it, and then step three is I should be out of that situation or thought process and not bang my head against the wall anymore about it. But I like to basically break it down into steps, and just that whole just breathe kind of thing. And what's the worst that could possibly happen, and then anything after that is gravy. Is basically icing on the cake for me. You know.
It's good advice. If you had to recommend one book based on all the books out there, what that one book, that might have like set you on the right path or put you where you are today, what is that book?
Boy, that's a good one. That's a good one. Being a Christian faith, I tell you, I've gotten more advice and more learning from my Bible, in the most difficult of times. Uh,
Okay.
that's where I go.
All right.
That's
Um,
where I've always gone.
right.
That's where I go.
Um, so two more questions. The main one. All right. So if you had to pick your three keys to success, what are Hank Capasso's three keys for success?
Okay. Think before you act. Okay. You have to look at all sides before you make any kind of a decision that's going to, require, like, money or time. I think a good plan and not be reactionary is definitely what I've learned anyway, to be the best, to to be the best remedy for impatience. I'm a very reactionary person, a very impatient person, and a lot of those impatient situations are the things that knock me down to the mat. You know, uh, Requiring dusting myself off and getting back up and getting back in line and starting all over again. So yeah, I would say uh, that that being one of them. A lot of it. I think you could probably put all three into different areas of just like Rome wasn't built in a day kind of thing. You're not going to change anything. And I think the other thing too is to rely on your own opinion and your own final judgment. I mean, learning is every day you should be learning something. You should be taking something away from somebody that might have said something or directed you to look at something or read something. To think that you have all of the answers, I think, is wrong. I think a lot of times, like, I'll take the things that I've understood people to say to me, or give me recommendations about it, and then finally relying on my own, putting that all together and relying on not what somebody else is going to try to decide for me, but my own, because I know my own business the best. I don't know my own anything that I'm involved in better than anybody else. But I've also taken and learned stuff from a lot of different people, to finalize my own opinion about something. You know,
So think before you act. Rome wasn't built in a day, and rely on your own opinion. Good. Those are three.
in the
Those are
in the
awesome.
very at the very end, the very last step. Yeah, the very last step should be a culmination of everything plus your own.
Right. All right. And then the last question. If you could step into my shoes, what is one question you would have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
What was the lowest point in your business, or
Okay.
what has there been a low point in business? And absolutely there was. Absolutely there was. Wasn't, it wasn't that long ago. It was only a few years ago, where I actually had partners in this business, and for 1,000 different reasons, including my own shortcomings and a lot of the blame on me, uh, it didn't work, and it was on its way to getting a little bit ugly. And we were closed down for about 4 months, and I didn't think we were going to be able to get the business back up again. The partners had left. Um, my wife had it, and I was there by myself, naked on an island by myself. And for 16 weeks, step by step, I was able to get the business opened again. Uh, I had just enough material. So funny. That's why I say it's like, I always say that God has had his hand on this business since the first day. I had just enough material to get going again after we were closed. And from that point on, it was the evolution of and the rebuilding of this business. Uh, if nothing else, I think I could consult on what not to do to become successful. Like I said, work backwards from what not to do to become successful. Because I don't consider myself like a success, but I consider myself successful for a couple of different reasons. And one was never giving up. When you have a passion for something, you just don't quit when there's been plenty of opportunities to quit and do something else. But my impetus wasn't to prove anybody wrong or to get back at somebody. So I have to make this a success. It was just a passion for my product, and that's the heartbeat of it and what's kept me going. Yeah.
Yeah, I think anybody who's been in business, nobody's done it perfect. Everybody's made mistakes. If you've been in any type of partnership with your business, that even if if it goes smoothly currently, there's been points where it's been rocky. Um, I'm in the same boat. Like, I
Mm.
had multiple business partners, and some went well, and others not so well. And at the moment, you're so personally invested, but then once you step away, there's a lot more clarity and appreciation, um,
Mm.
and recognition of your own personal faults, as well as where their
Yeah.
personal faults. And I think it's all, it's like what life is. It's all a growing process, and business is all parts of business is a growing process as well. And hey, that's kind of the reason why I'm trying to do business coaching, is because I've
Mhm.
been, like you, working backwards. Like, if I knew then what I know now, things would have been entirely different. And
Yeah.
I'm
There you
sure
go.
if 6
Right.
years ago what you know now, you might have shaved, been 4 years ahead of where you are currently. But it's a learning process, and
Absolutely.
that's how we all get better. um Hank, this is awesome. I really
Right.
appreciate your time. How can people, I think you mentioned at the beginning, but just recap again, how can people find you and find the nut spreads?
Okay. So we're located in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, on 160 Smithfield Avenue in Pawtucket. That's our factory location. People can always come here to purchase the product as well. You can go to our website, which is hanksproteinplus.com. Our email is there, our phone number is there. I'll never not answer a text or a phone call or, any kind of a request for anything. You can direct message me through Instagram. It's at Hanks PBS, and Facebook. It's Protein Plus PB, I believe, is our handle on. But just look up Protein Plus and it'll come up. Um, so yeah, many different ways. And any questions about our product, even, I always take the time during the course of the day to answer them all.
Cool. I will put links to all those in the show notes, for YouTube, and then on for social media. Hank, thank you again. It was great talking to you. If for our audience, if you haven't
Thank you.
tried Hank's peanut butter, it's a must-have. So go online and order some. Valuable insight about just business and using your mistakes to make you better. And then for our audience, we will catch you next week. Thanks for listening to the No Risk Business Performance Podcast. Please be sure to check out the show notes for any information pertaining to our guests, as well as to how No Risk Business Performance can help your very small business. If you found the information useful, please be kind and share it with your friends who also own very small businesses, so they can benefit from the advice that our guests can provide. I'm your host, Judah Boulay. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you later.